They dot the Canadian landscape from coast to coast like beacons of hope. Cenotaphs are at the center of villages and cities, paying tribute to those who've made the ultimate sacrifice. They are our soldiers, sailors, and pilots, all of those who have fought and continue to fight for our freedoms so we can live in a country of peace. So as Remembrance Day approaches, what will come to your mind? Who will you remember?
Basically all the veterans over the years who have saved us from hardships around the world.
My dad was a veteran, and so he was in a retirement home there in the last few years. They had a wonderful ceremony at Sherbrooke.
My dad was a veteran at one time, a long time ago, yes, and he's passed away, mind you, but I do remember my neighbor, next door neighbor, actually was served over for the Air Force in England during the Second World War. He was a stretcher bearer, actually.
More than 650,000 men and women served in the First World War, and over 66,000 died in battle. In the Second World War, more than 1 million Canadians served, marking a significant contribution for a country at the time with a population of 11 million. And from the Korean War to those serving in Iraq and Afghanistan, members of our Canadian forces continue to contribute to international peace and security.
My grandfather that was in the trenches in the Somme and managed to survive and come back, and had my dad who was involved in World War II, and how those generations carry on, it's really significant.
So what comes to mind for you on Remembrance Day?
On Remembrance Day, I certainly know back in Australia we are thoughtful of those who fought for our country and died and never came back, and for those who are serving now particularly.
Well, it's always a time to actually think about what people have done for our country, while the rest of the year it may not even cross our minds unless maybe we have family members who are currently serving. But it's time to really remember what people have done for the sake of our freedoms here.
My wife and I were on a cruise a few years ago, and we were in the Mediterranean, and there was mainly Americans on the cruise ship, but there was about 60 or 70 Canadians, and it was Remembrance Day. And we got permission from the master of the vessel to have a little ceremony, and we had a little ceremony. Their band member played the last post. We sang a little hymn, and believe it or not, when we looked around, there was all these Americans going, "Why don't we do that?" They don't seem to celebrate it quite the same way as we do as a thank you.
Well, the old thing on the statue, the less we forget, But we still do it. We still make the same mistakes.
Risking their own lives, many soldiers leave not knowing when they'll come home. And for many, they have left and never returned, leaving loved ones behind. So this November 11th, I'll be taking the time to remember those who have served and continue to serve our country, our nation, at home and abroad.